Ngũgĩ wa Thiong'o's The River Between, 1965, is one of the foundational works of post-colonial African literature. Set in the early years of British colonial rule in Kenya, the novel presents a profound exploration of cultural conflict, identity, and resistance. It tells the story of two Gikuyu, Kikuyu, villages, Kameno and Makuyu, divided by a river and, more importantly, by opposing ideologies, traditional African beliefs and newly introduced Christianity. Through the life of Wayaki, a young man destined for leadership, Ngũgĩ portrays the complexities of colonial encounter, the dangers of cultural erosion, and the hopes and failures of indigenous resistance. The novel critiques colonial domination while also addressing the internal tensions and contradictions within African society itself. Setting: the novel is set in the central highlands of Kenya, specifically in the Gikuyu-speaking region, during the early phase of British colonialism. The two central villages, Kameno and Makuyu, lie on opposite sides of the Honya River, which symbolizes both separation and potential unity. Kameno is known for its strong adherence to traditional Gikuyu customs and ancestral beliefs. In contrast, Makuyu has embraced Christianity, brought by missionaries. This ideological split creates a tense atmosphere that will only intensify with time. The rise of Wayaki. The central character, Wayaki, is born into Kameno, a descendant of the legendary seer Mugo wa Kibero, who prophesied the coming of white colonizers. Wayaki is seen by many as a chosen one, destined to play a critical role in his people's future. Wayaki is sent to a missionary school in Syriana, where he receives a Western education. His exposure to both Christian and indigenous influences makes him a bridge between the two worlds. He returns to Kameno with the goal of using education as a tool of empowerment for his people. He believes that only through education can the Gikuyu resist cultural domination and assert their dignity. Conflict over circumcision and culture. Tensions escalate when the missionaries and colonial authorities condemn female circumcision, Irua, a deeply rooted Gikuyu rite of passage. The Church's condemnation leads to a schism. Those who oppose the ritual are seen as traitors to the Gikuyu way of life, while those who defend it are labeled as backward and sinful. The issue becomes more complicated when Muthoni, the daughter of a Christian elder named Joshua, chooses to undergo circumcision despite her father's opposition. Her defiance causes a major scandal. She ultimately dies from complications related to the procedure, becoming a tragic symbol of the collision between old and new worlds. This incident hardens the divisions within the community. Kameno and Makuyu become even more polarized, and the pressure on Wayaki intensifies. As someone who respects tradition but also sees the value in Christian education, he struggles to maintain balance. Wayaki's vision and the people's expectations. Wayaki establishes a network of indigenous schools across the region. He rises as a respected leader, known for his oratory skills and commitment to progress. However, while Wayaki preaches education, the people increasingly demand political leadership and confrontation with colonial authorities. Meanwhile, Wayaki falls in love with Nyambura, Joshua's daughter and Muthoni's sister. Their love is taboo. Nyambura is Christian, Wayaki a cultural traditionalist. Their relationship symbolizes the possibility of reconciliation, but also the pain of ideological division. Betrayal and downfall. Wayaki's refusal to take a definitive stand on the circumcision issue leads to suspicion among both traditionalists and Christians. He is seen as too moderate, too conciliatory, unwilling to declare loyalty to one side. His secret relationship with Nyambura further alienates him from the elders of Kameno, who view it as betrayal. Eventually, he is betrayed by Kabanyi, a former Christian who has returned to the traditional fold and now sees Wayaki as a rival. Kabanyi accuses Wayaki of hypocrisy and weakness. The people demand that Waiyaki declare his allegiance and renounce his relationship with Nyambura. The novel ends ambiguously, with Waiyaki and Nyambura brought before the Kiama, Council of Elders. Waiyaki's fate is left uncertain, as is the possibility of unity between the two divided communities. Character analysis. Waiyaki. Waiyaki is a deeply conflicted character, emblematic of the African intellectual caught between tradition and modernity. His strengths, his vision, compassion, and commitment to education, are also his vulnerabilities. His desire to serve as a unifier leads to inaction at critical moments. He avoids taking sides on the most divisive issues, hoping that mutual understanding will prevail. Waiyaki's tragic flaw is his naive belief that education alone can bridge deep cultural rifts. His love for Nyambura and his reluctance to choose between Christianity and tradition isolate him from all sides. He is a tragic hero whose fall is not due to malice or error, but the intractable nature of the conflict around him. Nyambura. Nyambura, though a secondary character, plays a pivotal symbolic role. Like her sister Mthoni, she desires freedom to love, to choose, to define her own identity. Unlike her father, she does not see Christianity as incompatible with human feeling. Her love for Waiyaki represents the possibility of reconciliation between faiths and cultures, though the society around her is unwilling to accept this. Kabanyi. Kabanyi is a deeply antagonistic figure, driven by jealousy, pride, and a thirst for power. He was once a Christian convert but renounced the religion to embrace traditionalism. His animosity toward Waiyaki stems from ideological differences and personal ambition. Kabanyi represents the danger of extremism and demagoguery, willing to exploit division for personal gain. Joshua. A rigid and devout Christian, Joshua is both admirable and alienating. He embodies the colonial church's absolutism. His rejection of his daughters for defying church doctrine reveals the emotional cost of religious fanaticism. He stands for a faith stripped of compassion, mirroring the destructive aspects of colonial influence. Themes. 1. Tradition versus colonial modernity. The central conflict in the novel is the clash between indigenous African traditions and Western Christian modernity. Circumcision becomes the lightning rod for this broader ideological struggle. Ngũgĩ does not present an idealized view of either side. Rather, he shows the complexity of navigating change in a colonized society. 2. Education as a tool of liberation. Waiyaki's belief in education as the key to empowerment reflects Ngũgĩ's own views during the early part of his career. Education, in Waiyaki's mind, is a way to gain self-respect, resist cultural domination, and prepare for political autonomy. However, the novel also critiques the limitations of education when it is divorced from political engagement and cultural understanding. 3. Unity and division. The Honya River physically separates Kameno and Makuyu, but the emotional and ideological chasm between the two villages is far more profound. Waiyaki dreams of unity, but the novel repeatedly shows how difficult reconciliation is when both sides cling rigidly to absolutes. The story becomes a meditation on how division, whether religious, cultural, or personal, undermines the possibility of collective strength. 4. Love and sacrifice. The romance between Waiyaki and Nyambura serves as a microcosm of the cultural tensions around them. Their love is doomed not by lack of feeling but by societal pressures. Mthoni's tragic death further emphasizes the theme that individual desires are often crushed by communal expectations. 5. Leadership and responsibility. Waiyaki is groomed to be a leader, but his failure to act decisively leads to his downfall. The novel explores the burden of leadership in a divided society, how vision must be accompanied by courage, and how hesitation can be fatal in moments of crisis. Symbolism. The Honya River. A symbol of both division and connection. It physically separates the villages but also has the potential to unite them. Like Wayaki, it is caught between two worlds. Circumcision represents cultural continuity and identity for the Gikuyu, but also becomes a battleground for ideological control. Its controversy speaks to the larger issue of who defines morality and tradition. Muthoni's death symbolizes the cost of defiance in a rigid society, but also the price of trying to reconcile conflicting worlds. Narrative style and structure. Ngũgĩ employs a third-person omniscient narrative, allowing readers access to multiple perspectives, though the focus remains largely on Wayaki. The prose is clear, lyrical, and often reflective, drawing on oral storytelling traditions. The novel is linear in structure, with events unfolding chronologically but interspersed with memories, dreams, and prophecy that deepen the psychological and symbolic layers. Ngũgĩ's language is rich with Gikuyu cultural references, proverbs, and songs, reinforcing the novel's rootedness in indigenous tradition and giving voice to a community rarely represented in literature before the African literary Renaissance. Conclusion. The River Between is a profound and poetic exploration of a society in the throes of cultural and political upheaval. Through the tragic figure of Wayaki, Ngũgĩ wa Thiong'o dramatizes the dilemmas faced by African leaders and intellectuals during colonialism. How to modernize without losing cultural identity, how to resist oppression without replicating its divisions. The novel's enduring power lies in its refusal to offer easy answers. Instead, it presents the painful, often tragic consequences of trying to straddle irreconcilable worlds. Yet, in its depiction of love, struggle, and the hope of unity, The River Between affirms the resilience and complexity of African society and remains a cornerstone of post-colonial literature.